So let's talk Bollywood movies for a moment, shall we? Do you know the Bollywood films? Do you have access to? Well, I mean, because in this world you have access to everything if you have an internet connection. Bollywood films are a heck of a lot of fun. Films from India, and they play at theaters in this country. You kind of have to be near a population of Indian people who from India of Indian descent for a theater to show them. But luckily, in the areas where I work and live, that is the case, and I'm able to see these films in the theater. And I go in blind for the most part, which is how I went in to see this movie Jailer, which is currently in theaters now. If you watch this down the road from when I recorded, it's probably available streaming somewhere. This film stars a man whose older work I know a little of, and I went into this movie blind as I usually do. I read a sort of synopsis. Occasionally there's a Bollywood movie that's about a soccer team or a scientist, and I'm like, okay, there's probably not going to be any martial arts or singing and dancing in those. Probably not. There's no guarantee that there won't be. So maybe I'll skip that. But if it's going to be a comedy or an action or a sci-fi or something, I just pretty much go in blind. I did not know that this film stars, I'm going to totally mangle his name, and it's not out of disrespect, Rajinikanth, also known as Superstar. Now, years ago, a friend of mine brought into our life a videotape that was not translated. It was not in English, subtitled or dubbed in any way, but it starred this man who was proclaimed superstar. So we've always referred to him as Superstar. So when this film, Jailer, started, I'm sitting alone in the theater, which is always the case, funny enough. I see these in matinees on the weekend, and I'm almost always the only person in the theater, which is unfortunate because these movies are wildly entertaining. Up on the screen comes in huge words, very old looking logo, Superstar, and then it said something else. And I was like, is he in this? And also the retro look of that title made me think, this isn't an old film. As far as I knew, this was a new movie. It is a new movie. It was just apparently this actor has his own logo. Superstar Rajinikanth, sorry for the mispronunciation, is this wildly charismatic guy who was in these films that I saw years ago. I think it was called The Dancing Maharaja. He was hilarious and badass and funny and amazing. He's the star of this, much older now. A lot of gravitas, but also he's good with the comedy. And the basic story here is that you have a family living in India. The patriarch is Superstar, who is, you get the sense that maybe he was on the wrong side of the law in his past. People respect him. He's kind of a badass, but he's also just, goofing around and living in the home with his wife, and also his son and his wife, and his son's son, which would be grandson. So 3 generations living under one roof. And the son of Superstar is a police officer who is looking into some criminal activity. The movie opens with this really bad, nasty criminal executing 3 of his men who may or may not have wronged him, just to set an example. And this bad guy has stolen some kind of artifact, and Superstar, I'm going to keep calling him Superstar because I know I'll pronounce that right. Superstar's son is investigating the bad guy and then disappears. So what the movie is about is 3 hours. What the movie is 2 hours, 48 minutes, actually. What the movie is about is Superstar seeking revenge on the man who made his son disappear, seeking to find out what happened to his son, and just leaving a trail of bloodied and broken men in the process. Going into this movie blind, I really didn't know much about what it was going to be about, other than that it was going to be an action film. I didn't know it was going to be a revenge movie. Never knew where the plot was going to go, and it goes a few different places. At one point, it becomes a heist movie. It's a revenge movie. It's almost like a Bollywood Equalizer in a sense, with how just badass our main old man hero is. What I love about the Equalizer, what I love about the Clint Eastwood movies, the spaghetti westerns, is that this guy walks into a room full of bad guys, and he's walking out, and he knows he's walking out, but all the bad guys think he's not walking out, and it's just fun to watch that play out. So the action in this movie is fantastic. Some very large scale action, some just hand to hand stuff. The comedy is funny. There is really only one musical number. Now, there are moments in the film where there are montages with a song playing over them, but unlike most Bollywood movies, the people in this don't just break out into song or have fantasy musical numbers. The musical number in this is supposed to be being done for a movie. There's a sequence where one of the bad guys, or there's a character that our hero has to deal with in some way who works in the film industry. So there is a large scale Bollywood musical production number, but it's on a film set. So it's not like just springing out of people's hearts and bodies as it normally is in one of these movies, which I thought was interesting. And no musical involvement with our hero in this film either. It's really unusual in that it's separate and something else. So, as always, with both Bollywood films, you get a taste of multiple genres in here. Something for everybody. They're long. There's no intermission, even though at some point in these films there always is the word intermission on screen. But for whatever reason, U.S. theaters are allergic. Theaters or studios are allergic to the notion of stopping a film for 15 minutes to let people go to the bathroom and buy more food, which is what keeps theaters alive. So when you see a Bollywood film, it will say intermission, and then the movie will just keep going, unfortunately. Fortunately, because the movies are usually pretty great, unfortunately, if you have to go to the bathroom, if you had that really, really large soda, you either sacrifice a little of the movie or you suffer through the rest of it. So I thought this movie was a heck of a lot of fun. It's going to be hard to see for a lot of people. A lot of parts of the country, you're not going to be able to see this in the theater. This is at AMC. I saw this at probably, I think it's not exclusive to AMC. I think there was a part of the movie tavern chain that had it nearby where I was too. So highly recommend it. Our star is as charismatic as ever and funny. The supporting cast is all great. Gorgeously shot. The action is really well rendered. Not a lot or much of CGI, unlike what you'd see here. It all looked real to me. And you've got trucks doing crazy stunts, and you've got foo, and you've got gunplay and blade play. A wonderful surprise beheading that I never saw coming. And I was giggling. There were moments where I almost wanted to stand up and applaud and cheer in this movie. That was so much fun. And the level of a lot of violence, almost on the borderline of gore violence, which I did not see coming. That surprise beheading that I mentioned came out of nowhere, and I just was cackling with laughter because it was just a moment. It was supposed to be a little bit funny too. It's just a moment where these bad guys think they have our hero cornered, and he just whips out a giant blade and just takes the top off of a guy, and then deals with the other guy. So just, oh boy, if you can see this in the theater, please see this in the theater. If you can see it at home, you should watch it at home. Be aware that it's long, but it's never boring. The story just keeps chugging right along, and it's just so. I really enjoy these films. I'm so happy that theaters will play these, and just chumps like me can see it. So in theaters now, I probably have more to say about it, but I'm talking in circles at this point, so I'll release you to the rest of your afternoon. In theaters now is JAILER,